And listen, I'm a therapist. I'm not anti-talking. So if words aren't enough to build attachment, what actually creates connection? They still assume the answer is just more talking or better talking. A strong relationship is something you co-create. Happiness is something you build. How are we building connection beyond words? Some people are great at communication everywhere except the place that matters most. At home, they lead teams. At home, they accidentally interrogate their spouse. At work, communication is easy. You delegate, you clarify, you solve problems, you move things forward. At home, that same energy can make your spouse feel like they're being managed. You cannot walk into your marriage like, hey babe, I'm going to need that emotional report on my desk by Friday. That's not intimacy. That's project management with feelings. I learned that pretty early on in my marriage. You see, I'd get home first, and when Sarah walked in, I was ready to talk. And I mean ready. Like she had just stepped off a stage and I was the full press conference. And in rapid fire succession, I'd ask questions like, how was your day? What happened? Who said what? How'd it go? What are we feeling? Any unresolved emotional theme I should know about? In my mind, I was absolutely crushing it. I thought, look at me. I'm present, engaged, emotionally available. This is elite husband behavior. Meanwhile, she just survived a full day of people, stress, decisions, and noise. And then walked through a door to find me conducting emotional intake like I worked for the FBI. And that's when I started realizing something important. Good communication helps a relationship, but words alone do not build attachment. A lot of people miss that. They think closeness comes from talking more, explaining better, asking better questions, finding the right words. And yes, words do matter. But attachment is built deeper than that. It's built when a person feels safe with you, when they feel known, when their rhythm is respected, when they don't feel rushed or managed or pulled into connection on your timeline. Sometimes the most connecting thing you can do is not ask one more question. Sometimes it's giving your partner room to breathe. Sometimes it's sitting together quietly. Sometimes it's making dinner. Sometimes it's folding laundry and laughing about something utterly ridiculous. Sometimes it's being side by side without turning the house into a therapy session. That changed a lot for me because once I stopped treating communication like information exchange, I started seeing connection differently. Strong relationships are not built only through talking. They are built through emotional timing, shared moments, and learning how to be with each other in ways that actually creates closeness. So if words aren't enough to build attachment, what actually creates connection? And I think this is where a lot of couples get stuck. Because once they realize words are not enough, they still assume the answer is just more talking or better talking, deeper talking, longer talking. And listen, I'm a therapist. I'm not anti-talking. I would be in the wrong line of work, which would be awkward this late in the game. But connection is not built only by talking about life. It's built by sharing life. And those are not the same thing. A lot of really smart, capable adults bring what I'd call shop talk energy into their relationship. They know how to solve problems. They know how to divide responsibilities. They know how to run a calendar, answer texts, tag team the chaos, and keep life moving. And all of that matters. But you can be wildly efficient together and still not feel close. You can have a beautifully managed household and an emotionally underfunded marriage. You can divide every chore fairly, communicate all the logistics, keep the schedule humming, and still feel like glorified coworkers with matching groceries. Because attachment is not built only through problem solving. It is built through shared experience. And that's the difference. Running life together sounds like, hey, did you get the milk? Who's picking up the kids? Did you call the insurance company? What time is the appointment? Did you answer that email? Why do we suddenly have 14 water bottles in this car? Important? Yeah. Deeply bonding? Not usually. Shared life sounds different. It looks like cooking a dinner together and somehow turning it into a dance competition nobody asked for. Or it looks like cleaning the house while singing a song neither of you fully knows, but both of you commit way too hard. It looks like going on a walk and starting with, "Hey, how was your day?" and ending with, "Do you think squirrels have a community leader?" That's shared life. That's where real connection starts to feel alive. Because attachment grows in repeated moments where two people are not just exchanging information, they are experiencing life together. They're building rhythm, inside jokes, routines, memories, a sense of this is ours. And this matters because a lot of couples spend all their energy on maintaining life and almost none on inhabiting it together. They are efficient but disconnected, responsible but flat, loyal but tired. And the relationship slowly starts to feel like a joint venture with some affection sprinkled on top. That is not what most people are hungry for. People want to feel chosen, enjoyed, included, known. And a lot of that does not happen in one big conversation. It happens in hundreds of small moments that say, "I really like being with you. I want to share this with you. We are building something together." That is why little moments matter so much. Not because they are small, but because they are repeated. And repeated moments become emotional structure. So yes, talk to each other. Absolutely. But also ask a better question. What are we sharing? What do we laugh at together? What do we do together? What rhythms belong to us? What part of life actually feels shared and not just discussed? Because connection does not grow only through explanation. It grows through participation. And once a couple starts sharing life, not just managing it, attachment starts to feel a whole lot more natural. And once a couple starts sharing life instead of just managing it, the next question becomes, okay, what are we actually building together? Because a healthy relationship is not just two people taking turns getting their way. It's also not one person always being easygoing while quietly becoming emotionally invisible. That's not maturity. That's disappearing politely. A strong relationship is something you co-create. And that means a relationship is not just built in the big moments, such as where to live, where to move, how to parent, what kind of future do you want. It's also about being built in the small moments. What do we do with our weekends? How do we spend our money? How do we rest? What matters enough for us to protect it? What kind of home are we trying to create? What kind of people are we becoming together? That's why I think some people misunderstand what makes a relationship strong. They think the goal is to reduce friction. Just keep things smooth, keep things easy, avoid tension, don't rock the boat. But honestly, that's not always strength. Sometimes strength is two different people staying open long enough to build something neither one of them would have came up with alone. And that's what makes a relationship rich, not just agreement. It is expansion. Because when you were single, life is mostly built around one perspective. Yours. And that feels efficient and also suspiciously convenient. But in a relationship world, your world gets bigger. Now, there's another history to consider, another set of preferences, another way of seeing things, another person asking questions you wouldn't ask, caring about things you might miss, and occasionally wanting to decorate in ways that test your spiritual maturity. That's not always easy, but it is one of the great gifts of attachment. A good relationship stretches you. Not because the other person is trying to make your life harder, but because love keeps inviting you into a world that is much bigger than the one that you would have built by yourself. And that's why I like the idea of co-creation more than compromise. Compromise sounds something like this. You want Mexican? Well, I want pizza. So now somehow we're both eating a sad salad and nobody respects the outcome. Co-creation says, wait, we are building a life here together. What actually fits us? What is best for us? That's different. That means the relationship is not just a place where preferences compete, it becomes a place where life gets shaped together. And yes, that takes communication. But more than that, it takes curiosity. It takes flexibility. It takes enough security to say, it doesn't have to be my version or your version. Maybe there's a better version we can build together. That is where relationships start to feel deeper. Because now you are not just attached because you talk well, you are attached because you are creating something shared, something lived, something chosen, something that carries both of you. And I think that is one of the most hopeful parts of a strong relationship. You do not have to keep forcing your way through it alone. Done well, love expands your life. And I think that leads to the part people are actually hungry for. What does a good relationship start to feel like when this stuff is working? Well, not perfect, and certainly not effortless. Not like the two of you float through life in matching sweaters, finishing each other's sentences, and never having a weird Tuesday. When everything is working, people will find happiness. And I mean real happiness. The kind that can actually survive real life. But this sort of happiness is not accidental, not something people trip over and accidentally discover. Because I think a lot of people are waiting to find happiness in a relationship when most of the time, happiness is something you build. And those are very different things. Finding sounds passive. Like maybe one day you'll finally stumble into the perfect dynamic, with the perfect chemistry, with the perfect season, and then boom, mix it all together and everything feels easy. But building is different. Building means you create something over time. You shape it, you protect it, you repair it, you return to it, and you participate in it. That's what makes a relationship happiness so hopeful. Because it means you are not just waiting around for the stars to align and for both of you to magically become conflict-free, fully healed, and perfectly regulated and emotional geniuses. Well, that would be amazing, but also deeply inconvenient to wait for. No, a good relationship is usually built in much less dramatic ways. It's built in the moments where two people keep turning toward each other. Not perfectly, but intentionally. It's built when you learn what helps the other person breathe easier, and then you lift the burdens. It's built when you notice what brings them joy and make room for it. It's built when you stop treating fun like an optional luxury and start realizing it's part of attachment. It's built when you repair after a hard moment instead of letting resentment decorate the whole house. It's built when you stay curious. It's built when you laugh. And it is especially built when in the middle of stress and dishes and schedules and emotional static, you remember that this person is not just another problem to solve. They are someone to know, someone to enjoy, someone to build with. And I think that matters because a lot of people get discouraged in relationships. They think if this takes work, maybe something is wrong. I've heard clients say, if we're struggling, maybe we're not good together. And I've also heard if connection doesn't happen naturally all the time, maybe we're failing. I just don't think that's true. I don't think they understand what I see. Sometimes it just means you are two people living a real life. Sometimes it means you're tired. Sometimes it means you're stressed. Sometimes it means you're trying to connect while hungry, overstimulated, underslept, and one of you is asking a very sincere question in a tone that sounds a little too much like a customer service agent. That does not mean the relationship is broken. It means you're human. The goal is not perfect chemistry every minute. The goal is learning how to build and to keep building something good together. That's the hope. Because if happiness is built, then you are not powerless. You can create more of it. Not all at once, but little by little. You'll find better rhythm, better repair, better habits, better rest, a little more patience, a little more play, a little more shared life. And that's how strong attachment grows. not through one flawless conversation, but through a life that keeps saying over and over again, I am with you. I choose you. We are building this together, and I am not leaving you. And that could still become something beautiful. So if you've been telling yourself, we just need better communication, well, maybe that is part of it. But maybe the deeper question is something like this. How are we building connection beyond words? How are we sharing life? How are we making room for each other? How are we creating something that actually feels like us? Because strong relationships are not built by saying everything perfectly. They are built by showing up, learning each other, laughing when you can, repairing when you need to, and making a life together one moment at a time. And that should be encouraging, because it means you do not need a perfect relationship to find happiness. You need presence. You need practice. You need a relationship that keeps moving, however imperfectly, towards connection. If this was helpful, stay with me. On this After Hour series, we're going to keep talking about attachments, relationships, how to carry heavy things a little bit lighter. And if you have questions, comments, or anything else, please feel free to leave comments below and we'll respond to them.